Hello, everybody, and
Hey, Power
welcome.
Thetans.
Oh, we're hearing a bit of echo, Mitch, I think.
That could be me.
Hello, everybody, and hey, Power Thetans.
Yeah, definitely hearing some echo.
Are you still hearing it?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely hearing some echo.
Why is that thing still playing?
Yeah.
Have you got another tab open, maybe?
No.
Or Jeffrey or Karen? Maybe have a tab open playing the YouTube. Anyway, regardless, while you guys figure that out, hello, everybody, and welcome to this live stream where we're going to be talking about Scientology. The con is on, how Scientology sells lies, because that is such a big topic, and it is so clear how Scientology uses lies. This echo is very distracting.
There's huge interference, not just an echo, just a blast of sound.
I don't know what that's coming from. Maybe you could go around
just
and
figured it out. It's Jeffrey. I've just removed Jeffrey and I've added him back in. Jeffrey, I think you have a tab.
He's got a tab open
playing the YouTube video. So I've just taken you out for a second while you figure it out. Cool. Well, off to a rocky start. How's it going, Karen?
It's going great, Karen.
Doing fabulous.
Jeffrey.
Yes, Jeffrey.
Yeah, good. Doing great.
Hey, welcome. So the con is on, how Scientology sells lies, right? Scientology uses lies to deceive and recruit people into Scientology. And so we're going to be looking at some of the big lies that Scientology so often uses to lure people in and then keep them in. And so I thought a good way to maybe start this was looking at, obviously I worked in Division 6, which is the public division of Scientology, right? Which is getting new people in. So I thought that would be a good place to start. So an example I always use of a lie and how Scientology cons people from the get-go. The moment I first walked into a Scientology org, I was skeptical. I'd heard all of the stories of disconnection, all this sort of stuff. And I asked, what's this disconnection thing? And the answer I was given, which is the same answer I would then give when I was on staff, was, well, look, disconnection is something that's massively misinterpreted. We would never force families to disconnect from each other. You know, it's a personal choice. An example would be if you're in school and there's a bully that's, being mean to you or whatever, you would naturally distance yourself from that person. You would naturally want to not talk to them and not have them in your life. So you're disconnecting from them. That's all disconnection is. It's just been blown out of proportion in the media. We would never force someone to break a family apart. And as we all know, that is a lie. And that's one of the first things that a lot of people will hear in Scientology.
Well spoken, Alex. Wow. Yeah. They even had the nerve, though their other side, they had the nerve to have their spokesman go on CNN and say, there is no such thing as disconnection. Tommy Davis. I wish we could put the clip.
We could get it up, I'm sure. I would have to try and find it. But yeah, I mean, from the get-go, Mitch, you look like
it's actually a video. There's YouTube called "There is no such thing as disconnection in Scientology," and there's just a clip of that. Anyway, Mitch.
Yes.
Were you ready to say something?
Yeah, certainly. I can say a lot. The thing is, there is this. Yes, absolutely. There's one aspect of new people. Division 6, the public division, is all about getting new people in. And they have actually what they call a production line, because everything in Scientology that is designed to produce something is referred to as a production line. And the primary production line for getting new people in is called the testing line. I'm sure you've all heard about personality tests. They have this fake thing called the Oxford Capacity Analysis Test, which is just like, it has the word Oxford in it, plus the word analysis, plus the word capacity, and you put them all together into kind of this sciencey word salad, and you come up with these fake tests. And what they do is, so it goes like this: it starts out on the street, right, and with what they call body routers. Right? And so then those people are supposed to hand out tickets, hand out tests, get people in, direct people in, bring people in. I mean, I made a film about how this entire line works. So I know it really, really well. So then the body routers are supposed to get these new public in, and then they go to what's called the test center in the building. And then in some cases, they'll have test centers that are even separate from the organization. And then the idea, yes, Alex?
We've got pictures of body routers while we're
Oh, yeah, let's take a look at that.
What you've got?
Yeah, because you were, Alex, you were intimately involved in the three-card Monty known as Scientology.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have I've just Googled body routers here. We call them routers in the UK rather than routers.
Yeah, we call them routers, but it doesn't matter.
But here, body routers.
So you say route to infinity, and we say route to infinity.
Yeah.
Right?
So here we can
There
see
they
some
are.
Scientologists handing out leaflets. Come and get a free personality test.
They look so happy.
Yeah, especially these guys.
Yeah, they look really thrilled.
But yeah,
yeah.
we would always when we had the test center in London, so we would always have one or two people outside giving out flyers saying, "Hey, do you want to come in for a stress test or for a personality test, or come and watch a free film?" And it would be the Dianetics info displays, and from that point, I would take over and try and sell them the book.
Yeah, so the body routers. And they basically do a pretty good job of gaslighting the public. I mean, at least they're trained to gaslight the public. I can tell you that in the film I made, which is called, what is it called? I'm so happy I'm starting to forget. This is one of the longer names. It's called The Use of Testing, the Use of the E-meter in Testing and Something Else, right? And so there's a scene, not at the beginning of the film, but there's a scene where there's a body router out on the street. It's actually not the body router, it's the chief registrar, the chief salesperson. But because business is slow, Hubbard wants to teach staff that when business is slow, it doesn't matter what your job is, you get off your butt and you go out and you get people in here, because that's what we're all about. And they referred to this as elastic team tactics. You probably heard that term, right, Alex? It's like,
yeah,
and it means, and the line is, elastic team tactics, go with the flow. So when the chief registrar goes out into the street, she's in the company of a commentator who is interviewing her. He interviews everybody, and she stops at a bus stop, and she says, this'll do well. People mob off the bus. She stops a guy who's in a big hurry, and she says, she goes to hand him an invitation to come take a personality test. And he says, he brushes her up. I don't have time. I'm in a hurry. I'm late. And she literally body blocks him. She stands in front of him and she says, have you ever wondered why you're always so late? Well, he never said he's always so late. She says, have you ever wondered why you're always so late? And this piques his interest. And he looks at her. And she said, why don't you come on in and we'll find out. So this is the kind of psychological play that's used to hook people in, right? So then we see an elderly woman who's taken a test, and she's now what they call routed, or in England what they call rooted, to what's called a test evaluator. And now the test evaluator is going to go over her personality test with her. Fascinating. It's an elderly woman, and her name is Mrs. Brown. Does that ring a bell with anybody? Mrs. Brown, as in Rosemary Brown, as in Mike Brown's mom. For some weird reason, this elderly woman, her name is Mrs. Brown, right? Which
I was thinking. Oh, sorry, Mitch. I was thinking of the song "Mrs. Brown." You've got a lovely daughter.
A lovely daughter.
Not Herman Hermits.
Yeah. Maybe Hubbard was. He might have been a Hermits fan.
Could have been.
I heard he liked to hum Henry VIII.
Quick little thing. I sent a message to someone, but it said Alex posted it instead of me. Now, what on earth is that?
That's a background StreamYard thing that it's to do with being admins and stuff. When you post, you have to select your channel, but sometimes it doesn't let you do it. So if you click on, when you're typing a post on the left, there's a little icon. You can click on it and make sure it comes from your account, but sometimes it doesn't work.
I see. Well, I have to. Yeah, I didn't
We'll
quite
figure
get
it out.
that, but we'll figure.
Yeah. Okay. Listen, I just want to say before we go on, I think for some really weird reason, you guys have been bleeding subscribers, like I have been, for no reason. I don't know why, but it's just and okay, I'll admit maybe it's just me. I'm boring and people are running away in droves, but it might have to do with other goings on. It might have to do with YouTube. So if you could just take a minute and subscribe to each of our channels, or make sure that you are
Yeah.
subscribed, it would be really appreciated.
Absolutely. We're streaming on all of our channels, and there should be links in the description. If they're not, Surviving Scientology is Karen, then Jeffrey is Scientology Money Project, and then you've got Mitch Brisker and myself, Apostate Alex. We're streaming all of them. So yeah, give us a like and a subscribe. And sometimes people get unsubscribed, automatically by YouTube. It's been doing that a lot as well. So just double check.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
you know,
since I've been losing the last couple of days, it's like I'm looking at this going, what? I mean, that's not the end of the world. It's like whatever.
No, my subs are straight up and vertical. But
You're in
as you
power.
but as you can
But that's
see,
because Jeffrey, come on, look at your backdrop.
hey, this is a killer
like-
backdrop.
Yeah, you're
and
like
I'm-
advertising for Scientology. They're like,
No,
There's
I'm
actually-
live.
Someone
I want
asked
you to know
this
that-
question, modern dancer question, Jeffrey. Why are you using
yeah,
that
Jeffrey,
backdrop?
go ahead.
Okay.
Why are you using that?
I want to explain. Well, one, I'm artistic, and two, no one's ever done it before.
No, I think
And
it's
three,
great.
I wanted to. It's universally recognized, and I wanted people to know that I'm podcasting live from outside Pack Base.
On
So if you
Fountain
see
Avenue. You're on
attack
Fountain
dogs-
Avenue, right?
I'm on Fountain Avenue. It's at
Right.
sunset. I'm podcasting live. And so if you see German Shepherd attack dogs, security guards or LAPD come and get me, you'll know. No, but it seemed like such a, when I was thinking of a background, I thought one that's never been used. This is a lot of fun to just, Alex
Yeah.
Gibney opened his documentary with this going clear.
Yeah,
So
I think
it's
I'm
terrific.
I think I'm going to do the one taken across the street from Scientology Media Productions.
Well, you should, Mitch. I think if we started using Scientology,
Yeah, I think if we
themes
all
as
did that,
backdrops, it
I
would
think
be a
if we all
crack
did
up.
that, like Alex, do the London org, I'll do SMP, you do PAC, and we'll be like,
do our local orgs. Karen can do Celebrity Center. Karen
Yeah.
was for a while, just to go off topic here, she was senior case supervisor at Celebrity Center.
Yep.
yep,
My girl, that's my girl.
yeah.
What happened? Ray Midoff needed to. He was needed because Hubbard was very, very ill, comatose, and so they needed to rush David Mayo which David Mayo saved his life. But to replace David Mayo, Ray Midoff went to Clearwater, but Ray could not be given up for free. So I was the coin. They talk about coin trades like you. And I was sent to Celebrity Center because I had married Heber and we were living apart. He couldn't leave LA. I couldn't leave Clearwater. So that was the trade. Yeah. And I was there.
Yeah.
So for
Yeah,
about a
and-
year and a half, I was senior CS Celebrity Center.
That actually links.
Are you
into,
scratching
that's
your
another
chin,
con.
Alex, or do you need to talk?
I was putting my finger up.
I couldn't
because
tell. You're like,
I had a point. I had a point. So that's another con, actually. That just reminded me of a very common lie that people come across as Scientology tell you. When they try and recruit you onto staff to work for the church, they will always try and, tell you anything that will please you. For me, I was a student and I wanted to go and do law and I was interested in the legal system. And so they said, well, look, why don't you join staff and we'll post you in the legal section in OSA because we've got tons of court cases, so you can get some legal experience working on real life court cases. And I was like, okay, great. The moment I signed my contract, I was posted in Division 6 selling books, completely opposite to what I wanted to do. I ended up not going down the law route anyway with my career, but it's something that so many people experience is a con and a lie just to get you to sign on the paper. And then once you're in the contract, then you're all theirs.
Well, yeah, they'll say, Alex, there's great opportunities to pursue law in Scientology, which is true.
Yeah.
Right. But they're
certainly
won't
not
say it.
short of lawsuits.
Yeah, plenty of opportunities. I have to say, Karen, you mentioned trades, and in this film that I did about the testing line, it has a sports motif. The guy doing the interviewing is like a sportscaster in like the wide world of sports. And the first person he talks to, who's the executive director at the test center, which is separate from the organization, from the enterprise, Scientology enterprise, whatever that is. What do you call it? Whatever. he says, "Hey, I haven't seen you since Flag," and the guy says, "Yes, since then I got traded for like a tech sec and a blah blah," and like they refer to it like it's sports teams, right? So they really do, like that's just a thing in Scientology, this trading thing, like, they want you to go from one organization to another, but you have to get replaced. But no, we want two people for you because you're so valuable. It's a whole thing that they do. It's really
The
nuts.
language used is a little bit demeaning, like bodies in the shop, raw
Yeah,
meat. How
yeah.
many raw meat? So
Yeah,
a prospective client is talked in a language as a piece of raw meat. Raw meat means you're a wog. Wog means you're not a Scientologist.
yeah. Well, it means you're less than, you're barely human.
Yeah. PTS for life here. Jeff just had a really good comment. He said, one big con line is that Scientology is an applied religious philosophy to try and connect itself as a religious group instead of a giant real estate scam.
Good job.
Yeah,
Good job, Jeff. Perfectly spoken.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
if you believe in religion as a real estate portfolio, I mean, they worship real estate.
yeah. A lot of people
how
do.
it's
Some people worship their wine collection, right, Jeffrey?
Yeah, I wanted to, Alex sold books. I wanted to get into some of the Scientology contract stuff about how the lies are actually sold.
Yes.
Okay.
Are we ready to go there? And
Go
then
for it.
comment. Okay.
Yeah, we
Well,
can. I mean, we didn't finish the whole
Well,
the
Mitch,
testing.
no, Mitch, finish. Yeah, please.
Yeah, we were in the middle of the testing line. So Mrs. Brown is with
that's
the test evaluator, and the test evaluator, now they have a playbook of the way they interpret these personality tests. So she looks at her results, and she says, "Mrs. Brown, it says here that you're accident prone." And the woman gets a little introverted, and she's kind of thinking about that. She's an elderly woman. She may have trouble with her balance or whatever. But this test evaluator is reading this off a script. This result means tell this person they're accident prone. And it really catches this woman off guard because she's like, maybe I am. Then the test evaluator says, do you sometimes try to take on more than you can handle? So there's always this evaluation, like the guy in the street in the film. It was like, would you like to find out why you're so busy? And the elderly woman is, do you sometimes take on more than you can handle? So it's this idea of shoving them into what they call a ruin. And, she pulls out her credit card and right on camera and buys a course. Then the camera dollies, and there's a handsome young man. It happened to be played by the actor David Barrett, Barrett Oliver, in my mind. It was played by Barrett Oliver anyway. And the test evaluator is saying, well, maybe the girls wouldn't say that if, you didn't blah, blah. Makes a very evaluative statement about his relationship with women. He pulls out his credit card and he buys a course. So, and then it goes on from there. Then when they finish their service, whether they get auditing or whatever, then they're given this test again. And the test is used to show them that they've actually made improvement. So at that point, they're put on this hamster wheel. And it just goes on and on and on and on. A lot of people fall off, but enough stay. So that Scientology, in addition to its real estate holdings, has managed to, amass a few $1 billion. Anyway, there's the testing line, and it's one of the major cons.
Mitch, you mentioned it sounds almost like a psychic cold reading. Like I could say to you, I could say to you, Mitch, I sense you're under a lot of tension these days. I sense you're uneasy about something going on in your life. And there's a little bit of stress and rush, and maybe your thoughts are a little bit scattered, that kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe there's a woman involved. I mean, this is like all 9 out of 10 stuff, right?
Yeah. And then Alex, I have a clear sense that, he's hiding behind his glasses.
It's always kind of
Dianetics.
suggestive language, isn't it? That's exactly what it's
Yeah,
based on.
yeah.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
let's get
Now,
into
Jeffrey, just
Karen?
before Jeffrey starts his contracts,
Yes,
can I
sir.
throw out 100% lie? In order to extract tens of thousands of dollars for people to get knots to jettison attached spirits, the lie is you will be cores over matter, energy, space, and time. And who talks like that? What? I'll be cores over time? I'll be cores over matter? Anything material? These are very provocative, teasing, luring in promises. And if you look at tens of thousands of people who did this level, supposedly to be cores over matter, energy, space, and time, they're alcoholic, they're into violence, they have complete compulsions and so on. So there's a lie that extorts gazillions of dollars to be cores, and then when you do solar knots, you're supposed to be cores over life. Well, what does that actually mean? Cores over life? Okay, Jeffrey, you go.
Yeah, Mitch, did you have a comment?
No,
on
I
cause
was
over life?
thinking. Well, we'll
Thought?
get back. Well, let me think about cause over life, and I'll get back to it. But
Okay.
yeah, it's pretty amazing. I mean, if you look at Scientology's, and this leads into what you want to talk about, Jeffrey. I'll do a segue here. If you look at Scientology's main landing page, Scientology.org, it says on there, Scientology has answers to life's biggest questions. Who am I? Where am I going? Why am I here? Okay, so this stuff is the stuff that you go, you turn around and you run away. When anybody presents you with that, you go, oh, I know what you're trying to do here. And so those lines, those actual lines, are in a film called Orientation, which was the beginning of the contracts that Jeffrey's talking about. Hubbard had this idea to a way to prevent lawsuits. He said, you know what? People have sued us because they said, we got involved in Scientology and they told us it was a religion and they made promises and then we found out it wasn't a religion and it was just a bunch of hooey. And they left and they sued. You know, one girl famously said they promised to fix her eyesight and she still needed glasses. That was the big lawsuit in Portland, right? It was just over something silly like that. And they lost millions and millions of dollars on that. So Hubbard had this great idea. He said, what if I make a film that shows, that implies that Scientology is religious in nature, and then after the film's done, we have the people watching it sign an affidavit. And the affidavit says, I saw the film, I understand what I'm getting into, and then if somebody ever sues us for that, then I can simply, the church lawyers can take the affidavit into court, they can show it to the judge, and it'll be immediately thrown out. He referred to this as, this purpose of the film as, to forestall litigation. And then to make the whole thing look legit, he said, and to help a new person get around in the organization. So, that's the beginning of these affidavits that the people saw.
And again, that in itself is a con, right? That just shows
Totally
that the whole, like, you're pitched as a staff member that's newly recruited, that this is orientation. It's helping you understand how it all works and where you are and how the org operates and all of this, and that's the purpose of the film. But you just described David Miscavige saying, no, that's the secondary aim. The main aim is a legal one. That's a lie. That's a con.
Yeah, it was Hubbard. It was actually Hubbard who
Hubbard
described
completely opposite to what it actually is meant for.
Well, he wanted it to be ostensibly to help the person, but covertly so that they wouldn't be able to sue on the grounds of I didn't know what I was getting into.
Yeah.
Also, OCA, they're using Oxford capacity, nothing to do with the fabulous Oxford unit, but people are so, Oxford, it's an Oxford stress test.
Yeah, I think
they use total.
Yeah, no, the language is amazing. I mean, I think it's more relevant to Oxford shoes than it is to Oxford or fabric or something it got, who knows. But I have to tell you, there's some really profound religious concepts in the film Orientation. It's actually kind of funny. I wish I could kept a script. I mean, I remember a lot of it in my head. And for people who are watching, this was originally the film that had the line, at the end that had the kicker was, you can stand up right now and walk out of this theater and never mention Scientology again. It would be a bad idea, but you can do it. You can also jump off a bridge or blow out your brains. But if you choose to stay, we will be very happy with you, and you will be very happy with you because you will have proven that you are a friend of yours. It was loaded with, I mean, we changed that. We took out the blow out your brains, jump off a bridge thing because it was just like a
Intense.
bad idea.
But Mitch,
yeah.
the version I saw had that in it. That was Larry.
Yeah,
Anderson.
it's still on the internet, but the film was remade with just voiceover talent. So
It was scary though.
Yeah, it was really frightening.
After years of Larry Anderson demanding they change it because they were using him, and he'd long since left the cult. Larry demanded it over and over, and they still used him.
Yeah,
and then according to Mitch, they then redid it and took out.
Oh yeah, we actually redid it not too long after Larry left because it was such a problem. So I think Larry just didn't know that we'd redone it because it's Scientology. Nobody cares. Nobody's going to tell him. Like they're not going to give anybody the courtesy. We redid it with a wonderful actor. He did it as narration. Nobody was on camera, and he had he was from Britain. He had a British accent. Because I tell you, Scientology, David Miscavige, they love British accents. It's like, if Andrew Gold had come to me, or Alex has a brilliant accent, they literally like youthful British accents. The guy we hired is a wonderful actor. I've seen him act and do voiceover a lot. And he'd lived in America for so long that when he goes home to Britain, people are like, "Oh, you have an American accent." But to us, he sounded great, so we use him as a voice of orientation. But yeah, there's one other great piece of religious language where Hubbard wrote, let me see, I'm trying to remember, he wrote, "Religion has meant peace for man. Man has believed far longer that he was a spirit than he was a piece of mud," right? And then what you're looking at is a kind of a godlike character in a diaphanous robe with a long white beard, and he's gently holding a monkey, and he's placing the monkey onto the floor of a jungle. So it's this really weird kind of hypnotizing, brainwashing thing that says like, maybe evolution is real, but it was God making it all happen, and we really are a religious movement, and blah, blah, blah. So and then the body of the film just gets into the guide saying, this is this, and this is this, and this is this, and, helping. And then you have the end scene where you get all the crazy talk about Scientology.
Yeah. Mitch, I just want to add a story before we go on. 2007, 2008, whenever, you remember Jason Begay made his fabulous YouTube videos?
Yeah, absolutely.
Where he wrote, "Show me a motherfucking clear." Well,
yeah,
right
he had my favorite quote was from Jason was, "Clear the planet at those prices. You couldn't clear Beverly Hills," but but anyway.
Oh, I love Jason. But so I had met Jason a few times at lunch, but around that when he left, because everyone was hooking up Old Guard, Never Ends, Indies.
Right.
People who had left, former Sea Org. So Mark and Claire Headley and Jason Begay had a party, an SP party at Lake Pyramid here in California, Southern California. Right. And I remember I went there and everyone was there. And I was walking and suddenly I see Larry Anderson.
Wow.
And it's like, you're the guy in the orientation film.
Yeah.
This for me was very much a revelation because it made someone who was high level, prominent, celebrity in Scientology real. I'd already met Jason, and then Larry, he had left the day before.
Wow.
He had just left the day before, and he was there with his wife, and it was really quite something. He was such a nice guy. He was such a nice, decent. I know Larry. I used to see him at Tori Christman's SP parties, but it was amazing. Right. But see, this is what's so great about SPT. We can tell stories. I never knew there was a Mitch Brisker directing the film in which Larry Anderson was in. So to me, it's always a pleasure to meet the real people. and to get to hear their stories once you come out from behind the facade. So, by the way, Larry never attested to clear. He was in, I think, 20 years or something, spent $1 million. He never attested to clear because he said, I'm not clear. And he refused to do it. So, but the legal stuff about how they sell lies, I'm going to go on share screen. Are we ready?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so let me share the screen. And this, again, is from the Scientology Money Project. Now, this is an article I did, and it covers one of Mitch's favorite topics, Scientology TV. Scientology TV's futile attempt to normalize Scientology deviance and lies. And I started out with, this is kind of a fun old 1970s era, it's an 84 book, rather. So before we begin, I want to the audience to notice that wall. Thank you. So let's just notice the wall. Isn't that a weird piece, Mitch?
Yeah.
Notice that wall. That's it from a training routine, right?
Yeah. That's from one of the objective training routines.
Yeah. Notice that wall. Thank you. Now, as we go down, I'm going to just go through this. Let me get the screen down a little bit. When you go into Scientology, and I'm going to take this off just for a minute. Let me set it up here. Let me set it up, okay? I just did a piece on Scientology billionaire Bob Duggan.
Right.
He spent $500 million to buy the rights for a drug from a Chinese pharmaceutical company. And then Bob immediately goes out to sell more shares, 476 million shares, the purpose of which is to repay him back his $500 million. And I'm going somewhere with this. Bob wants to eliminate his risk, his financial risk. So he spent $500 million out of his pocket, but he wants his company or his shareholders to pay it back, so the risk is gone. Which that's bad faith.
Can you explain to the audience who Bob Duggan is in relation to Scientology?
Bob Duggan is a billionaire. He's a long-term Scientologist, and he's donated over $400 million to the Church of Scientology in his lifetime. He made his money in big pharma. He invented a cancer medication, or his company, Pharmacyclics did, and they sold it to AbbVie for $21 billion. Bob's share was about 3.2, which he split with his wife, Trish. And so he's donated over 3.2 billion. So hoping that lightning will strike twice in big pharma, Bob locked up the rights to this Chinese company's drug, and it's just the rights. And then, but he's trying to raise the money to pay him back, so he eliminates his financial risk, okay, by using other people's money. To me, as an investor, that's bad faith. I talked to one of my friends on Wall Street who said no Wall Streeter would take that deal with Bob. They wouldn't invest if he didn't have skin in the game. Grant Cardone does the same thing. Grant Cardone buys a building in his own name with his own money. Then he in turn sells it to Cardone Capitalist Company at a markup and takes a 1% finder's fee. So Grant buys a building, say for $200 million. He puts 20% down, sells it to his company, gets his down payment back. So he's eliminated his risk altogether. So when you get to the concept of, that's called self-dealing, where you're telling a group of people that this is a good investment, but you're actually wanting to eliminate all of your risk, all of your financial and legal risk, right? That's what Scientology does. I'm going to show you why. So I preface it. Now, when you go into Scientology, you're going to see Mitch Brisker's orientation film, and that's for them to take you behind First Amendment religious protections. You have to agree that Scientology is religion. Now, this obscure document is called Statements by Staff Members. And it says, quote, the church, its board, and its management take no responsibility for statements or claims made by staff members regarding the workability of Dianetics, spiritual healing, technology, or Scientology applied religious philosophy, or any claims or promises made to public persons, the public or to Scientologists, unquote. So what they've done there, to your point, Alex, or you can say, as a staff member, you can say Scientology can help you with this. Mitch, what you said in the personality test, Scientology can help you with this.
Mhm.
They find your ruin. Karen, they say, hey, some auditing can help you with this. So, but legally, they're saying we take no responsibility whatsoever for what a Scientology reg or staff member has said. So
Right.
that's the lie. They also say that L. Ron Hubbard never promised Scientologists anything, that
Right.
the tech is just his record of research. Now, this next thing I'm going to read, and it's worth listening to. This is from the Church of Scientology's own website. Do you see it? What will I get out of auditing? Okay. What it says, it describes auditing. You can pause it and read it, but I'm not going to go through it. But at the very bottom, the red arrow, it says, we are not making any claims for Dianetics or Scientology. When you have experienced it, it is you who will make the claims.
Yeah.
So Scientology takes your $500,000, but they shift the burden onto you to attest. And below this next paragraph, the church, right here, the church makes no guarantee of results, as auditing is something which requires the active participation of the individual. Auditing is not something done to an individual. It is something done in which the individual is the active participant. So my point is that the church takes all the money, promises nothing, and you sign a contract to that effect, refuses to make any claims regarding the efficacy of Scientology. So Scientology shifts the burden for all claims made by Ron Hubbard onto its own staff members and parishioners. So basically, Scientology promises you everything, but legally promises you nothing.
Right.
That's why you have to attest that you've completed a level. That's why you have to make a success story. They say, hey, we're just here. This is a record of research. You have to experience it for yourself. You attest to OT1, OT2, OT3. You attest to going clear. We didn't do anything. We're just giving you. So that's the real lie, is they'll take your money and promise you everything, but legally you've signed off that you didn't rely on any promises.
And if you
Yeah.
refuse to write a success story, you bounce back. You have no more chance to get
Yeah.
to any
Yeah.
other level.
Yeah.
No, Karen, somebody asked that. I was on with Mitch the other day, and someone asked, what happens if you don't write a success story? What happens, Karen?
You are frozen in time. No more Scientology. No more.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you have 50,000 on account sitting there. They've got the money, and you can be declared SP for asking for a refund. So you're absolutely trapped. You write a success story. Well, if you don't, the viewpoint is something was missed. Go back and get more counseling at your dime, use up more hours, and go into a correction cycle so people are conditioned, write something down. Otherwise, I'll never.
Oh
I
yeah,
can't
no,
go
you just,
forward.
yeah. And you learn the pattern of what to write. You have to thank L. Ron Hubbard. You have to mention it as life-changing. And if you're really watching your P's and Q's, you'll mention that David Miscavige is just the most awesome person in the world. And that'll keep you out of trouble.
Well,
But
people have written to me from Freewind saying if they didn't put thank you, David Miscavige, and glorify him, their success story of what they did is kicked back. They must now go back and include David Miscavige and L. Ron Hubbard in the success story.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. 100%. I just have to mention that the language that you read off, Jeffrey, that said, we, Dianetics Scientology, don't make claims. It is you who will make the claims. That's
Yes.
word for word from the orientation film. That's
Yeah,
a line that Hubbard wrote in the orientation film.
Yeah, Mitch, I'm glad you mentioned that, because L. Ron Hubbard, he said that one of the successful, he wrote this in 1964. He wrote three things. He wrote, the successful actions have been to get people to sign waivers where they give up their legal rights. And so they formalize it. The film interested me. Before I met you, I was aware of this, that they want to make the film so that you signed it and said, I've seen the film Orientation, and I agree that Scientology is a religion. And by you agreeing that it's a religion, you give your consent to be governed by Scientology.
Right.
In fact, if you don't see Orientation and sign that you agree Scientology is a religion, you stop, you don't go anymore, you don't get any auditing. So the first thing they're going to do is pull you behind their First Amendment religious protections.
Right.
You know what's fascinating about that is in the United Kingdom, there is no First Amendment religious protection. It's a completely different legal system, but the contracts are exactly the same. You know, I had to sign a contract that says I agree Scientology is a religion, but it doesn't have the same effect here. There's no such thing, for example, as priest penitent privilege in the United Kingdom. That's not a thing in law. There is no protection for confessionals and that sort of thing in law. But it's exactly the same contract in the US, you know, but it doesn't give the same protections here. They haven't adapted the contract, which you would think they would, but they can't adapt the contract because the legal system here doesn't allow for that protection like it does in the States.
Well, here it's very important. And so Hubbard wanted that film, as Mitch said, created so you could see the bookstore. And, you know, the film is in some ways, it's kind of interesting how they take you through the bookstore. Mitch, I like the part where Larry's talking to the woman at the bookstore, and she's saying, "Oh, L. Ron Hubbard's books always sell out. They're so hard to keep in stock." And
Yeah, they're very popular. She points out this bundle of well, you should start with these. They're very popular. Yeah. She does this whole number.
And then Norman Starkey makes an appearance in the film.
Yeah, that all got redone or rewritten. Yeah, he takes us through Hubbard's early days as a adventurer and a writer and a bon vivant pilot and Boy Scout and all this crazy stuff.
Yeah, I like how Norman says, "Mr. Hubbard was fully professional in 27 fields."
Yeah. For us, really good. That's really good. I think, that's really good. Yeah, we did that at the, I'll tell you a funny story. We did that at the Life exhibition at the HGB. We actually shot that in the Life exhibition. And while we were in the middle of shooting, all of a sudden, I got a call on my cell phone from Miscavige. It wasn't even like his secretary saying, "Please hold" for David Miscavige. It was like, and he was panting and breathless. And he said, "I just heard you were at the HGB." "Yeah, I'm at the HGB." He said, "Can you go up to the 12th floor and interview Heber? I need it for a court case." So, you know, Heber Jensch at that point was president of the church, and he needed some kind of a statement from him to be shown in court. And so he just shut down an entire shoot. You know, it was just crazy. He said, "Go up the 12th floor right now. I'll pay you $3,000. I'm like, wait a minute. You know, and you can't say no, but I'm like, I'm already being paid to be here. It was just really weird. Like, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, whatever. It was just a funny story that I forgot about that. I associate that with Norman because it's, you know.
Heber was my former husband. Heber Jensch.
Right. Yeah.
And the father of my son.
Yeah.
That's another whole story. But anyway,
can I go through the 4 contracts very quickly?
Yeah,
For
please.
the audience, we have limited time. Okay, so this again is from my blog. I'll put it in the show notes. These are the 4 contracts, and the first one that Mitch referred to is called, quote, attestation of religious belief. Thank you. Attestation of religious belief regarding the Scientology religious film called Orientation. And I put it on my blog, and it's basically giving your consent to be governed, and you know it. Now, the second contract is called Religious Services Enrollment Application Agreement and General Release. And a point I've made over and over is that in America, consent belongs to the individual.
Right.
So you have to give your consent to be governed by a religion. And this is why I made the point that when you resign from Scientology, you should write them a letter, IAS, all the orgs you've been in, saying, "I withdraw my consent to be governed by the ecclesiastical rules and laws. So you withdraw your consent. So when you go and you give them your consent, and it is legally binding, and this also you abandon. If you look at point B, can you see point B on your screens? It
Free
says
Senior Project just said question attestation. I need a word clear. Attestation just means you are attesting. You're saying, yes, I've read this, I agree with this, and it's my opinion. Would you agree with that kind of definition, Jeffrey?
oh yes, yeah.
Yeah, right on. Mhm.
Now, can you see point B on this, or do I need to make it larger?
If you make it bigger, that would be great. It's quite small.
Okay, let me make it larger. Can you see it now?
Perfect.
Okay, now this is a very important. Let me go back. Let me go. Point B. Here's what the church wants you to do. Quote, the abandonment, surrender, waiver, and relinquishment, to which I refer in the immediately preceding sub-paragraph, is unconditional and irrevocable. Now, what you give up in point A, you freely give your consent to be bound by the discipline, faith, internal organization. So this is the legal thing, which means you forever, quote, forever abandon, surrender, waive, and relinquish your right to sue or otherwise seek legal recourse with respect to any dispute, claim, or controversy against the church, all other Scientology churches, all other organizations. So basically what you're doing is you're agreeing not to sue the church ever, either that your heirs, assigns, families, anybody. So for a church that preaches freedom, what they want to do at first is strip you of your civil and legal rights to sue them. And you agree to go into binding arbitration, which is subject all things to the International Justice Chief. So this is how they're selling lies. Then on your folders, your pre-clear folders, where it's a written record of all your spiritual progress or lack thereof, you agree that you don't own them, that the church owns them in perpetuity. You can never see them, look at them, read them, or anything. So you don't get to know what's going on your folders. And Karen, just for a minute, I'll pause before we go to the fourth contract. The PC folders, because you were a Class 12 CS, what do they contain? Why don't they want pre-clears to look at their folders? Why can't they have them or look at them?
Well, now and again, there's some very derogatory stuff written. For example,
Really?
there's at least 159 people, I listed them all, that have access to look at your folder when you're in. All of CMO can call for your folder, RTC can call for your folder, every FES and another FES, every FES has looked at your folder. OSA Int has looked at your, OSA Int Legal has looked at your folder, OSA Int Intelligence has looked at your folder to time track you. I actually calculated how many people as senior CS, they would call for the folders, and your folders are read and discussed. Now, the derogatory comments might be, this is a no case gain. Would not be surprised if he is, you fill in the dots. These are just commentaries. And of course they don't want your full, you don't want to be caved in by looking at just loose tongue, sloppy comments in the folder. But I wanted to tell you, since I worked at Office of Special Affairs for 5.5 years, I would just want to throw in a point. When Christofferson won a judgment of $30 million in Portland, Oregon, the church got paralyzed with fear of how law courts and judges are normally hostile to, they understand fair game and stuff. They got immobilized with fear. And that's the very start and origin point of more and more lawyers writing more and more contracts and adding more paragraphs. Now, every time there's another lawsuit, and look at present time, Lear suit, they do a complete threat. And how can this be? We thought we bulletproofed ourselves against lawsuits. Every additional lawsuit adds more and more refining and more paragraphs. And now you must sign 1 inch, 1.5 inch thick. Jeffrey showing you some of the contracts, but every lawsuit causes yet more legal loopholes to be sewn up so that you cannot sue.
Right.
They can't believe
No.
it when there's another lawsuit and another lawsuit and
Right.
another
Well,
lawsuit. They
I,
thought they were bulletproof.
yeah, one thing I would just like to add to that, Karen, is that when the orientation film was done, which was the beginning of these affidavits, these contracts you have to sign, it was thought that that was the end of it. And then there was, what is it? There's, in addition to orientation, how many? There's a total of 3 or 4, Jeffrey.
Well, there's 4 more. Let me just show you the last one. The last contract, and let me enlarge it here. The last contract's what I call the kidnap contract. Is how Lisa McPherson died horrendously. It basically says if you have a psychiatric episode, or what they call a psych break, that you do not want to be treated psychiatrically because you don't believe, as a matter of faith, in psychiatry. So you expect the members of your religion to come and take you out of a psychiatric facility, as happened with Lisa McPherson. She had a psychotic episode. She had a small fender bender there in Clearwater, jumped out of her car, stripped naked, and said she needed help in the middle of the day. So the ambulance came and took her, and they were going to put her into a Baker Act, a 3-day, 72-hour psychiatric evaluation. But the church came with this contract, pulled her out of it, and put her in what's called the introspection rundown. And Karen, can you explain what the introspection rundown is and why it can be the duration can go on and on?
Yeah.
What is the
27.
introspection rundown?
Okay. And 27 days later, Lisa McPherson was dead. They took her out of Morton Plant, one of the top 10 hospitals in all of Florida, and believed that they knew. All right, to tell you what the introspection rundown is, let me tell you a small little anecdote. On the ship we lived with L. Ron Hubbard, a guy called Bruce Welch went crazy. He had a meltdown, a psychiatric episode. And he went to the galley. The galley is on a ship, the kitchen is called galley. And he got a carving knife. And he started running down the corridors. Ships have corridors with cabins each side. And he said he was going to kill L. Ron Hubbard and stab him. He actually named 133 times or whatever. But he was raving in a full-blown psychotic break. This is the origin of introspection rundown. Poor Mike Rinder, he arrived, I think he was 18 years old. He was made to bodyguard Bruce Welch outside the cabin. Ship personnel, CEO members jumped on Bruce Welch, locked him in a cabin, barred, and they say a madman has the strength of 10 ordinary men. Bruce Welch the bunk beds were iron, and with his extra adrenaline of his insanity, he was bending the iron in the cabin. So all the execs of the ship wanted Bruce Welch thrown off the ship pronto. Next port, get rid of this madman. And Hubbard said, no. We claim we are the masters of the human mind. If we get rid of him, he'll just end up he was an American, Bruce Welch. He'll end up in psychiatry. So we have to cure him. So that was the birth of the introspection rundown. Hubbard and Bruce Welch became pen friends. And Hubbard wrote that Bruce Welch had to be in complete isolation in this cabin. No one must talk to him. Food must be just put through a slot on. No speaking. Absolute, total isolation. This all became the introspection rundown. And they talked, and Hubbard's first question is, just before you wanted to kill me with the carving knife, what happened? What triggered you to go to the galley and get the knife? It's electrifying to read this whole, all the flag auditors had to study this for blood, because it's kind of unusual to pen friend someone who wants to stab you 133 times. Anyway, Hubbard took this incident and made it into a rundown. And actually, most of it was made into L11, which is absolutely crazy when you look at it. Because you're not a Bruce Welch. You're not grabbing a carving knife to go stabbing people. But you pay L11 to do most of the procedure done on Bruce Welch. What evil purpose do you have? Is the major listing question. Evil, you're evil. Well, Bruce Welch did have a meltdown and was being evil in as much as he wanted a homicidal act. But they sell L11 for tens of thousands of dollars as if these people had evil like Bruce Welch. Go ahead.
I think this is how it kind of ties into the theme, right? Of Scientology being a con and selling the lies, is that Scientology presents itself as something that is helpful and beneficial to you, not just as a human, but on a spiritual level. This is going to cure you. It's going to make you give you a better existence in life. But in actual fact, it's not helpful. You know, if you're having a mental breakdown or a psychotic episode or something, what you need in that moment in time is care and compassion,
Yes.
sometimes
Yes.
medical interference,
Right.
Yes.
right? Not someone asking you to write up your crimes and asking you what evil intentions you have. That is not going to help that person. But Scientology tells you that that is what's going to help you. It's a complete opposite
Right.
of what it promises, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what's terrible about introspection rundown is you're cut off from the world. No one can talk to you. As Lisa McPherson went more and more crazy, throwing her feces on the wall and just talking about God, and she was God and God was in her. And as she was being more and more crazy, she made herself more and more divine in language. No one said a word. Instead of a kind word and maybe even a foot massage or something to just comfort her, they had her in complete and utter isolation.
Yeah.
That's cruelty. And of course, 27 days later, she was dead. So the introspection rundown is a summary of what Hubbard did with Bruce Welch, to answer. Long-winded answer to your question. Did I answer your
But this
question,
is what
John?
this is what the contract's about, right? This is giving you permission, giving the
Yeah.
church permission to enforce this on you, right, Jeffrey?
Yes.
Yeah, let's go back to it. Specifically, what it does is you give the church permission to kidnap you and lock you up in what's called the introspection rundown, and it can run through indefinite duration. And again, I'll post this in my notes, but basically, it's at the discretion. So if you have an event, they don't want you running out on the street screaming. They can actually physically take you into custody and lock you in a hotel room at Flag or wherever. There used to be babysitting houses where they would do this. There were some in the San Fernando Valley. But so they take away, you give them your consent to have this done. Now, in this bolded text, it says, quote, "I have carefully read this contract and fully understand its contents and consequences. I also understand that I am not eligible for spiritual assistance unless I sign this contract," unquote. So unless you sign it, you're not going to get any auditing. Now let's go back into quote. "While it is unlikely that I will ever be in a condition where psychiatric intervention may be deemed an option, I herewith reaffirm that in such an event, I wish to receive only Scientology spiritual assistance, including, but not limited to, the introspection rundown, and that this choice is an independent exercise of my own free will. I fully understand that by signing below, I am forever giving up my right to sue the church, its staff, and any of the releasees named in the general release I signed for any injury or damage suffered in any way connected with Scientology religious services or spiritual assistance," unquote. So you release the church for any damages up to and including death. So post Lisa McPherson, and these are in other contracts. For example, if you were doing auditing at the Detroit org during the winter and you slipped and fell and broke your knee on the steps of the org, you've hold them harmless for anything that happens to you up to and including death. So basically, Scientology wants all the money, but they shift all the burden and all the risk onto you. And Bob Duggan's done the same thing with his investors, as is Grant Cardone. So there's this massive, we want all the money, and yet we want none of the liability or risk. It's on you. So up to and including death. That's how profoundly the lie is. They'll sell you spiritual freedom, but if you die, harm, get injured, go insane, go bankrupt, disconnected from your family, you agree to never sue them and hold them harmless for anything. That's why what was interesting in one of the lawsuits, and I don't remember which one, the appeals court, Ninth Circuit here in California, said to a Scientology lawyer, so the judge said, one of the three judges said, so if I went into Scientology in the 1980s and I experimented for a month or two and then left, and then 20 years later I was hit by a truck owned by the Church of Scientology, would these contracts still be binding upon me? And the church lawyer said, yes, we take that position that would be. So the church wants to say, once you sign these contracts for the rest of your life, anything having to do with Scientology, you can't sue. And of course, the Ninth Circuit said, no, that we're not going to do that. So that's interesting, but that's how they sell you lies. So the lie is in the lie is in their advertising. You know, Mitch has talked about the taglines of freedom. Everything that they put into their films about freedom, spiritual freedom, improve. What is it? What was it we talked about, Mitch, in the film? Improve your city, or improve yourself, improve your city.
The tagline that was change your city, change the world.
Yeah. So they have all the marketing and advertising, but the reality is in the contracts, and that's why we see Jane Doe's locked up, and they want Valerie. They want to put them all into binding arbitration. So they're not selling you freedom; they're stripping you of your legal rights. And then when you see the dirty back end, they want to silence you by locking you in an arbitration.
Right.
PTS for Life here said, nothing screams religion like a lengthy contract.
Right. Yeah, speaking of which,
go on, Mitch.
I was just going to say, Scientology is very fixated on confession. Every Scientologist has interacted with the organization in the form of some kind of confession, whether it's a security check, which is a straight up interrogation, or whether it's a confessional, which is something more likely to say, you're forgiven at the end and gaslight you. But and then they like to, hang on to this thing that they call priest penitent privilege, which, as Alex pointed out, in England, there's no such thing. But if you think about it, if a Catholic goes to confession, that Catholic has a predestined idea that what he's saying is between himself, the priest, and God. That's as far as it goes. The Catholic parishioner doesn't think, oh, there's a camera in there, doesn't think, it's being written down and it's going to be potentially distributed to the number of people Karen mentioned, 160 people, right? But Scientology claims that same privilege, but while, not keeping it, what I think the expectation of priest penitent privilege is just between you and the person that you told, and that's it, period.
Yeah, I wanted to note Jane Doe's comment. Some of that absurd contract junk must be enforceable. If we were out in the secular world,
unenforceable, not enforceable.
I'm sorry, thank you. Yeah, some of that absurd contract junk must be unenforceable. If we were out in the secular world, yes. However, under the First Amendment, the state may not make any rulings concerning religion. So with religious contracts, you're in a different part of the law where you can sign absurd religious contracts. And in fact, they're only tested when they go to court. So, for example, the Jehovah's Witnesses with not wanting blood transfusions. As an adult Jehovah's Witness, you can reject a blood transfusion. Now, however, if you refuse it for your adult child, there have been cases where the parents have been charged with manslaughter or murder.
Right.
So, when it comes to religion in America, things are very, very enforceable. That's why these Scientology is fighting to keep everything in binding arbitration which is a kangaroo court. It's a sham. But so that's the problem, is fighting the beast that is First Amendment protection.
Right.
I think that links through. I was going to ask, I can hear howling.
Yes, we
That
have
means
a
Halloween.
Borzoi chorus. It should end.
I was going to say,
Let me
I
go
was going to
take care
say,
of
sure. I'll take you out until you come back. We're coming up. We've gone over an hour, so I'm thinking now might be a good time to start looking at some of the questions, if you guys are up for that. And Jeffrey's last point about the enforceability of the contracts actually links to one of the questions that I found, which says, from Born Ancient, question: how do personal record folders held by the cult stand legally within the UK's GDPR legislation? And it's such a good point. For those of you watching, GDPR is the Global Data Protection ruling or something. Essentially, it's a European law that applies to not just companies based in Europe and the UK, but any company that operates or holds your data in the UK and Europe has to abide by these rules. Essentially, it gives you as a person the right to your own data. So you have the right to request a copy of any and all data an organization has of you. That includes CCTV, that could be, ethics files, and your PC folder. And that is not something that can be overturned or signed away in a contract. It is a right in the UK and Europe. So in answer to your question, if they've got a PC folder about your PC folder and you request it through GDPR, they are legislated to have to give that to you. Wow. Even though you may have signed something that says, I don't want to see it, because your data is your right under GDPR.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that while the Church of Scientology, the Scientology enterprise sees that as a kind of suppression against them, the reason that got passed, as my understanding, is especially in Europe and UK, they were very sensitive to what fascist and autocratic organizations look like. And one of the first things they do is they gather intense amounts of detail on their members. So in Europe and the UK, they said, we're not going to let fascism rear its ugly head again. We're going to put a stop to that. And the Church of Scientology ran straight into that with their data gathering deal, their data gathering the obsession.
Absolutely. Here's another one, super chat. Thank you, Mervolumer80, for the super chat. Thanks for all you're doing. I appreciate that. I think we all do. That's nice that we've got the support of the community, right?
Look, there's a question for me that's kind of interesting.
Sure, go for it.
Well, I can't put it up because, there it is. How was I able to not sign a secret contract? I don't know. I just would always pretend my hand was broken. And anyway, nobody ever tried to recruit me. I think because I had more value to David Miscavige. He could point to me and he could say, see, I had to hire somebody to do your job because you guys are such a bunch of idiots. So if I joined the circuit, you wouldn't be able to say that.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of the lies that I wanted to bring up today, actually, PTS for life. How do I contact Bob for my overdue big pharma check? This is the lie I think I'm probably most upset about. The church told me that if I became a suppressive person and spoke out against the church, I would be paid a giant check from the big pharmaceutical companies because the psychs are paying off the SPs. Well, I've very clearly been a suppressive person for several months now, and I haven't received my check. I can't believe the church lied to me about this. Where's my check?
Yeah,
I know. We all need our check. What's really amazing is that the number of people I've spoken to who are connected, who have know somebody who's high up in in the psychiatric industry. Maybe they're an officer in the APA or something, and they ask them about Scientology. They're kind of like, who? Like Scientology makes this big deal about psychiatry. There's some psychiatrists that are mildly interested in Scientology because it's such a whack job a belief system. But most of them are like, Scientology? What is that?
Yeah.
But Scientology would tell you that they have a major impact on psychology.
May I share something fun before we go?
Please.
Sure.
This is really fun. This gets into more of their legal stuff, and I'm going to share it. Now, this is pretty mind-blowing. If you're an OT, you have to pay $100,000 financial fine if you talk about the OT levels or Xenu. That's why they won't talk about it. So here's a folder, OT preps, OT eligibility, blah, 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 blah. Now this contract, this is what you sign. Okay, so it says, parishioner understands and acknowledges that the confidentiality of the advanced technology is to be maintained forever by Flag Service Organization, by all other churches of Scientology and affiliated organizations, and by their respective parishioners and staff, including parishioner. That means you have to lock your OT materials in a briefcase, locked, and then you acknowledge it. Now, further, parishioner agrees to pay Flag Service Organization and its licensor the total amount of $100,000 for each such breach by parishioner. So if you talk about the OT levels, that's $100,000 breach per occurrence. That's why Scientologists won't talk about it. That's why, when Tommy Davis was the spokesman, and I think that fellow out of Palm Springs was interviewing him, and they were asking him about Xenu and space opera, and Tommy says, that sounds nonsensical. That doesn't make any sense to me. Does it make any sense to you?
Yeah.
He was lying, but that's why OTs, there's $100,000, and there's all kinds of contracts. There's a severance contract where you agree not to blaspheme David Miscavige. It's a legal word, and I don't recall right now, but you agree not to deprecate any of the leading names of Scientology. So every course you take, you sign a contract with every org you take. So that's how it shakes out.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, everybody. Xenu. That was 400 grand right there.
Even with
That's a comment for you, Karen.
the internet is just deluged. Hundreds of thousands of comments on what these confidential xenovolcano attached spirits exercising your body. It's full of it. They may have that contract, and little scared little guys inside believe all that. But once so many exit, and it's just inundated. There's no secret. They've lost their secrecy to it.
I think personally, I'm sorry, Karen.
I wanted to add one last final comment on the introspection rundown. You have to pay cash for this rundown. You have to pay. They took off the hours off your hours on it. And if you sort of die or you're incapacitated, they go to your relatives and bill them. You have to pay hard cash for locking you in a room and asking yourself, it's cash. Follow the money. Scientology is about the cash, even when they lock you up.
Yeah, I just have to make a comment about this whole Xenu thing real quick. Miscavige has been kind of famous for what I call mainstreaming things. Gold was a secret base, then everybody knew where it was. So he's like, screw it, we'll make a documentary about where it is. The meter was a big secret, and then everybody knew about it. So he said, screw it, let's put it in an ad and show it on the Super Bowl. He's always like, he'll take these things and put them in the mainstream. I think they should do the same thing with Xenu. They should put a statue of Xenu in all the churches, a big sign on the wall. They should do ads that say, hey, people are making fun of us, so this is what happened. Your body is infested and we can help you. I'm telling you, there's enough people out there that would buy that shit that they would probably have 3 or 4 times the membership that they do right now. I mean, just look at people buying into like this QAnon conspiracies and all this crazy stuff.
Oh yeah, Mitch. Yeah. I've always
They're
thought
losing
that
out.
Yeah, I always thought they've said, yeah, that's real. You know, because in the Christian evangelical movement, Catholicism, demonic possession is viewed as reality.
It's real. Yeah.
I've always wondered why they don't go public and embrace it and say, yeah, that's what really
They should
happened.
stop running away from it.
I know.
They should be selling it as, no, you don't understand. You guys are
Lean
deluded
into
because
it.
your
Yeah.
BTs are telling you that, you know, you want to know why sometimes you're upset and sometimes you have weird thoughts. It's not your fault, people. There's a group of people that will fall right into that.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody said
look-
here, Xenu Project said I shouldn't be giving them ideas. Don't worry about Xenu Project because I know how, if they ever do that, to completely take that apart. So we're good.
Yeah.
Well, let's blast through these last 3 comments. Nancy Ives, thank you for becoming a new channel member. Candy's Life has a comment for you, Karen, if you want to read this one out.
Oh, you're so sweet, Candy. Thank you for your kind words. I'm an old lady now.
And I think
Beautiful
this is a
old lady.
perfect one to wrap it up on from earlier. Nermin Odkin says, Scientology selling lies since 1950.
There
Any
you
final
go.
comments from you guys before we wrap up here?
That's a bonus.
No, I
sticker.
think that I have the Introduction to Scientology Ethics book, and according to my reading of it, we're all in violation of Scientology ethics, and it's probably lower conditions for us. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
I think, Alex, unless you go
Yeah.
out on the streets tonight and sell at least 1,000 copies of Dianetics, I think you're not going to get out of lowers. Anyway,
Well,
Yeah, I'm gonna go out and buy a dozen toothbrushes tonight because
and I'm just
feeling
staying
I'm
here
gonna be
parked
scrubbing
across
the
the street.
bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm staying here parked across from Pack Base, so I'll be here if you want to drop by.
Okay, same time, same place next week, Tuesday, 5 o'clock Pacific. All 4 of us will be here and entertain and educate you for another episode.
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for joining us, guys. And thank you, everyone. And we will see you on the next one. Bye for now.